Welcome to our latest episode of the Technocrats.
Weathering the storm, why supply chain resilience is always in season. So today we are actually going to talk about this topic because it's more important than ever before. And I am Deepak Mittal, and I'm CEO of NextGen Invent Corporation. So NextGen Invent Corporation is a leading AI, data science, and technology services company. And I'm also currently the chairman of the supply chain committee of Columbia Business School Alum Club of New York, and also have been the member of board of directors of various companies, including supply chain management company, a VC firm and an IoT firm. My expertise are actually in transforming organizations into AI-enabled organizations and defining their AI roadmap. And my background is leading strategic initiatives for large size companies like IKEA and small, very innovative organizations such as ecommerce.com. And I have realized that how important the supply chain resiliency is for the business success. Today, market is really impacted by the geopolitical conflicts and global uncertainties. And that is why organizations are even changing the manufacturing unit from one country to another. And that is changing the transportation and logistics pattern in the supply chain. So today, we will explore why supply chain resilience is important. What are the risks to the supply chain? How we can identify those? And how we can actually mitigate those. And to answer all those questions, I have with me Duane Kotsen. So Duane, welcome to the LinkedIn live event, and I would love you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me on. Deepak, I've worked in technology for software companies probably the last 30 some odd years. And I had the privilege of working for one of the largest supply chain automation companies out there. I've run some big post-sales teams, including large professional services organizations that deployed technology that helped a lot of the bigger companies today optimize their supply chain. I think today with all the geopolitical combination of changes going on and whatnot, supply chain resiliency is more important than ever. And I'm glad that I'm here to speak about it. Currently, I'm a partner with a group called Marlborough Street Partners. We're a advisory firm that really helps small technology companies get through inflection points and really look at how to improve and grow their business. We serve, VC and private equity companies, as well as management teams that are interested in really, moving their business forward. It's been very interesting, to spend time with those folks. And it's also been a privilege to be an advisor for your company as well. So appreciate the opportunity again, and look forward to getting into the details.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So to start with, actually, the McKinsey basically released a report in which they said that supply chain disruptions happens every 3.7 years. And that causes a large financial losses to the companies. So to start with, Duane, please help us understand what is supply chain resiliency is and why is it so important?
Well, there's a lot of books, a lot of materials, the McKinsey report, et cetera, that's been put into that recently. And I think the real challenge is that a number of companies just don't spend the time doing the upfront planning around those disruptions. One of the things I'm going to do today is kind of highlight a lot of moving parts with society, with Mother Nature, et cetera. And I think those moving parts are going to just move faster and faster than ever. So just counting on things being kind of the status quo, I think is not going to help companies have the strength in their supply chain that they need move forward in the future. And I'll throw out an example, if I will. I recently, as you know, was in Southeast Asia, and I came back through Tokyo's Narita airport, and was kind of remembering an evening or an afternoon where I was there 13, 14 years ago, 13, I guess. It was March 11th, 2011. And I've never felt, I don't think I've ever been as terrified in my life. I've never felt the ground shake. I explained to my wife how I was going to step on top of my garment bag so when the floor gave way, I wouldn't break both my legs. But that was the Fukushima, or the Great East Japan earthquake from that March 11th in 2021, or I'm sorry, 2011, and hit 9.0 on the Richter scale, which was just a crazy event. So we slept in a cold airport, and I think I got home 25 hours late. The estimated damage from that was about $235 billion. And there were major supply chain challenges for like the next 6 months, and some of them lasted even longer. And I was going back and forth, had worked at this supply chain company, had a big supply chain project that we were doing with a major Japanese manufacturer. When I got back and everything settled down, we had software that would help analyze risks in the supply chain. And the phone was just coming off the hook. And people were calling us up, can we purchase the software? Can you help us implement it tomorrow? Et cetera, et cetera. And then I would say 4 or 5 months later, some of the major supply chain issues cleared up. Things got back to normal. And nobody really spent time, the phone stopped ringing, at least about supply chain resiliency. And everyone was kind of like, I think that's behind us. So why do we have to worry about it? And, I think if you look at the last 3, 4 years with the COVID outbreak, granted, that's a 1 every 100-year occurrence. But I just saw a number of companies that didn't have contingency plans in place. And we're taken aback by some of the backups in the supply chain from COVID. I mean, at some point, cars it was hard to manufacture cars because you couldn't get semiconductor products for them. So I think the point is that, things are changing, and having these contingency plans is really important moving forward.
Well, you touched on it. I can even think of 2020, the pandemic, COVID-19. You touched on that, and I think the 75% of the organizations faced the supply chain disruptions, and I think that has not gone. And still, the global supply chain is vulnerable. In your opinion, why do you think global supply chain is vulnerable now, even after the pandemic? And what are actually really the issues which are at play here? Why now, when, like you mentioned, the phone stopped ringing, everybody was good, and then pandemic, like after 1 year of 2 years of COVID, things were supposed to get normal, but it seems like it's still the supply chain is vulnerable.
Yeah, I think, people want to see life get back to quote unquote normal, whatever that is. And I think my point from today is don't count on normal ever occurring again based on, what you think it is. I think the world's very different today, even than it was 5 years ago. And I think we have to plan for that. I think if you look around the globe, you'll see hotspots. You got the Ukraine Russia conflict. You've got tensions in the Mideast, and even though global piracy is relatively lower than it has been the past 10 years, there's sometimes certain groups are adding weeks to shipping. And I have a great example of that. I'll go through in a little bit. For me, it's not clear that the U.S. or the U.K. to a lesser extent is still willing to play the global policeman on the high seas, that the role they've played in the past. You have U.S.-China tensions over Taiwan. You've got trade issues, and I don't know. I don't see that changing even after the elections in November. And then one thing was really interesting last week when I was trying to just look at the weather to see what the weekend would be like, and on the Weather Channel was the 2024 hurricane season update. And, they group the hurricanes into named hurricanes, type 3 hurricanes or class 3 or higher. Whatever the normal is that they're usually projecting, they're projected this year to have 150 to 200%. So another could be 2 times the number of hurricanes we have. Those are going to impact not only the high seas, but of course the coastal cities that have big ports in them. And, that's another issue that I think we have to take in consideration is, Mother Nature usually will have an adverse effect, if anything, on global supply chains. And I think Mother Nature has gotten a lot less predictable as time's going on. Hopefully we realize that global warming is a real thing and figure out how to combat it. But it's something I think is there for certain. And then, you've got other things at play too. You have demographic changes and declines in some of the areas best known for manufacturing. And, if you look back from, 2000 to 2010, you had 15+% labor rate increases every year. And then from 2010 on, it was still double digits, maybe 10 to 12%. So those costs are really starting to pile up, and people are moving manufacturing to other places. They also, if you look at some of the global economists out there with the whole depopulation are talking gloom and doom. There won't be any people to work the factories. I don't know the extent of that. I actually picked up a couple of books recently because I find it an interesting topic. But I think there's going to be, for various reasons, shifts in manufacturing capacity and where manufacturing is done. And, one could argue that all that is part of the whole broader trend of deglobalization. I actually think that's a very real thing. I was at a film festival recently. My daughter's in film, and talked to a person who had an offshore group that did animation. And he said he was traveling to Southeast Asia a lot. And I said, well, what's going on now? Oh, we brought that back to the United States because it was cheaper and I had better people there. So for a lot of different factors, I think you're going to have those shifts. And I think, over the last 40, 50 years, we've had relative stability and things have been the same. And the thing I want to leave people with today is that I don't think things are going to be as, like they were in the past. I think that the new normal is going to be a lot more variability. And I think leaders need to plan accordingly and make sure that they have the contingency plans and they look at the alternatives that are out there so that they can be successful and mitigate those challenges.
So thank you for actually helping us understand what the supply chain resiliency is, why it is important, and is definitely why it is actually vulnerable in your opinion still. But suppose, say, for example, even our understanding that this is actually very important and it's vulnerable, what problems I can face as a business if I still don't act on it and don't make my supply chain resilient?
Well, there's a couple interesting examples that happened just recently. If you look at the disruption that we had in the Red Sea and the fact that some of the shipping had to go around Africa and add a couple weeks, there was a major Tesla plant in Germany that was, shut down. It was shut down for about 2 weeks. That plant had 11,000 employees, and it produced about 6,000 cars per week. Now, I don't know the exact, I try to get the information. I know a little bit about German labor laws, so I assume that some of the employees got paid, but it's a huge cost to the company, and they didn't produce 12,000 cars. Estimates that I found were over a quarter billion euros lost sales from not having those cars out in the market. And that was January, February of this year. So that's a really firm example of what can happen. In general, on the due to that conflict that rerouted shipping the Red Sea for a time period, the cost to move goods to the West Coast of the US from international destinations was up 38%. And to move product to the East Coast of the United States was up 21%. Those are substantial cost increases in freight. And I doubt whether many of the manufacturers were able to pass those costs along to consumers. And I do know that the freight hedging mechanism that's out there was kind of saturated as well. So the ability to hedge your freight costs was limited in that time frame. Several of the big retailers, Walmart and Target, were in the news, and they had delays in shipment due to port congestion. We have, sometimes you end up rerouting things as well. So once you do get products stateside, it's in a different location, and you have to pay more money to get it to where the product's going to be sold. And I think about too those crazy pictures that we saw of port congestion during COVID in Los Angeles harbor, right? You had ships moored out at sea that had no place to go. You had confusion over, the workers and getting more staff on there to unload all the cargo more quickly. And, at the height of that, about 2 years ago, the cost of moving a container from China to the US went from $1,500 to $25,000. Again, just a huge cost increase. Now, who bears the burden of that? Sure, you can try to pass some of that on to the consumer, and some people were able to, pass on a fraction, but most of the companies had to eat that. And what they were able to pass on to consumers ended up adding to, the inflation that we're all trying to fight as well. The other things that can happen from it, you could have mismatches of inventory in different places. Nobody likes additional inventory. It's going to cost more. It takes up warehouse space. It needs to be moved at some point in time. But conversely, you don't want to stock out, right? You don't want your customer who comes once a month or once a week to your store, they can't find this product. It's not just that they'll definitely go to another store to get the product they need today, but you could change their overall buying habits where they stop going to your store weekly and end up going out to a competitor. So there's issues there that have to be taken into consideration. When these shipments get delayed, you can have spoilage on food that needs to be refrigerated if it doesn't have the right capacity in the trucks and whatnot, or rail cars that are moving it. All sorts of contractual penalties now are built in to a lot of these agreements that companies have with their suppliers. Those are at risk. And then there's all sorts of potential regulatory compliance issues. You think of industries like pharmaceuticals and whatnot. And so if you add it all together, again, I think we've spoiled the consumer over the last 40, 50 years. We've gotten better with supply chains. We've gotten them lean and mean. But now that there's more variability out there, they're more vulnerable. And the end result is, people expect to have what they want, when they want it, in the store they want. And when it's not there and those expectations aren't met, you find a high degree of dissatisfaction, which nobody likes in their business. And that has a broader impact of cost that it's very hard to measure with just a quick calculation.